Welcome everyone to today's Igniting the Inclusive Workforce session. My name is Todd Herman and I lead development and community relations for the Bobby Dodd Institute. I'm so excited today to be talking about vocational rehabilitation resources. And I think I try to keep count of the sessions that we've held. I think this is number 10. So we are so thrilled to be joined by two representatives from Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. And before we get started and I introduce them, I wanted to first just thank our sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't be able to hold these sessions and be able to share the topics that we know many of you have come to enjoy and found them very helpful. As part of just the whole effort surrounding igniting the inclusive workforce. So to start off with, really want to thank the Atlanta Foundation, as well as BDI for all of their support behind this project, Disability Inn of Greater Atlanta, as well as Georgia Tech's Excel program and the Georgia Tech Institute for Leadership and Social Impact. And thank you as well to our good friends at MARTA. So today is all about vocational rehab. And I'm so thrilled to be joined today by Jason Williams and Brandon Worthy. So to give you some background as to their pedigree and what they do at Georgia Vocational Rehab Agency, I'll start with Jason. So Jason Williams has served in many roles with GBRA as a rehabilitation employment specialist, a training and education specialist, a vocation rehabilitation counselor, and an office area manager with GBRA. And now he currently serves as the District 2 manager. So what does that mean? Well, he serves portions of West Georgia, from Marietta to College Park, and he earned his bachelor's and MBA from Auburn University. So go Tigers. He has also completed graduate coursework through the University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa, University of Kentucky, and University of Texas at Austin. He is currently, he is past president of the Georgia Rehabilitation Association. And joining him is Brandon Worthy, also an Auburn Tiger graduate, but Brandon is the District 3 manager at GBRA and certified rehabilitation counselor. He also received his Master's of Education and Rehabilitation Counseling, as I mentioned, from Auburn, and is currently a PhD candidate at Auburn. So we're so thrilled to have them join us today and walk us through all about VR. And so I believe that Brandon is going to start us off. So Brandon, you want to take it from here?
Well, thank you all for your attention this afternoon. The first thing I'd like to talk to you about today is GBRA's mission and vision. And so the GBRA mission is employment and independence for Georgians with disability. The GBRA vision is every Georgian with a disability can work and live independently. And so that's what we want to do, is just create independence and help people find employment. All right, and we're going to go to Jason for the next.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Brandon. Well, people often ask when we talk about vocational rehabilitation, well, what is that? Unfortunately, it's probably still the best kept secret in Georgia. We're trying to change that. So that's why we thank you so much for your time this afternoon to talk to you a little bit more about what VR is. I believe we have to know kind of where we've come from to know kind of where we're going, right? So just a little about history about vocational rehabilitation in general. Back in the early 1900s, there was no type of public rehabilitation program. There may have been some private entities that did that, but that all changed as soldiers started to return from the war, World War I, World War II. It wasn't a vocational focus. It was more just about rehabilitation in general of physical disabilities. As legislation was passed over the years, landmark enabling legislation was passed over the years, the scope of VR changed to include all persons with disabilities, potentially. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 was one of those landmark decisions. Here lately, in the last decade or so, the Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act has now brought all the partners together, VR, Georgia Department of Labor, all the partners together at one table to serve mutual customers. So that's just a little bit about our history, about kind of where we come from to now, to today. What is the purpose of VR? When to use VR? When to not use VR? A lot of times when we receive a potential referral, our partners, our other agencies ask us, I have someone in mind who might be a good candidate for VR. I'm not sure though. So what are some things that we look for or consider when making a good referral to VR? What constitutes a good referral to VR, right? So we have to think about hidden disabilities. If you have someone who comes into your agency, your office, and you think, there may be a bit of a disability there, maybe an undiagnosed learning disability or something like that. I mean, of course, we can't assume. Diabetes is another hidden disability. People have that as well. So when I say the best thing to do is ask, with respect, So if you've seen someone who's kind of hopped from one job to another, and they say, I have trouble focusing, or my attention is I just get so distracted, bring up the fact about vocational rehabilitation. Hey, I've got a possible solution or resource for you. Vocational rehabilitation, they help people with disabilities go to work. Have you ever thought about maybe seeing if you might qualify for VR services? So, most people, when you bring it up like that and ask about it in that respect, they understand. They know you're coming from a place of trying to help them and support them, right? So, try to kind of probe a little bit, if you have to see if that person may have one of those hidden disabilities that may be a good candidate for referral to VR for services, right? Also, if you see that they have some barriers to work, some what we call functional capacities that result from their disability, they're impacted them from going to work, that's what we're looking for, okay? To potentially serve those people so we can provide services to them that address and level the playing field for them in order to go to work in independence. If someone is looking just for a job, nothing wrong with that, nothing against that, right? But VR is a system, it's a process, okay? So in other words, if someone comes in and just says, hey, I need a job lead like today, VR may not be the best place for them. Perhaps it might be DOL that is a better fit for them because they're just looking for a job right there today. That doesn't mean necessarily that you can't also refer them to VR down the road, okay? Because we can work with them. It's a process. We'll talk about that in a little while here as I go through the stages of the VR process. But keep us in mind for any potential referrals because we would love to serve people, okay? So what is the VR process? Well, again, we'll talk about this in detail a little bit later. But we start with referral. Again, it has to be a good referral. A person has to be willing, interested in going to work. They have a disability and those functional capacities that impact them, that limit them from going to work to qualify for services. Okay. So if they're interested in services, we take an application, complete an application. We determine eligibility, determine their priority category, what level of services they may need. We kind of probe a little bit with some additional assessment. We call that a needs assessment. What services do they need to address their disability in order to go to work? We develop a work plan. It's very individualized. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But we provide services such as job training, work readiness training that help them to do so. And then eventually, how we justify that the services we provide this person have helped them to become successfully employed for at least 90 days and close your case and successfully rehabilitated. So in a nutshell, that's the overview of the process. Again, we'll talk about more steps in detail here in just a little while. It's very individualized, okay? So it's not one size fits all. So what VR may look like for one person, their journey, their pathway may be totally different from another person. And that's the beauty about VR, because we provide those services based upon those individual needs of that person to help them to move through the process in order to become rehabilitated. So that's just a little bit about our background, kind of what we do, the stages to go through. So turn it back over to, and I'll talk about the goals too of VR, okay? Again, we talked about, independence in terms of VR services. It will vary from person to person. Again, one person's goals in terms of being independent may look different from another person. Again, that's okay. okay? Because we're there to help meet them where they are and kind of help them go through the process. It's about gainful employment as well, okay? We're not just talking about a job, okay? Again, if someone wants a job, it's great, DOL, they do what they do, but we're here to help them have a long-term career that provides good benefits, that provides career advancement, measurable skill gains, credential attainment, et cetera, okay? So it really is about gainful employment, helping them with that career long-term, okay? So they have that same opportunity as all of us want to enjoy their work, to progress in their career, okay? Yeah. And now I believe we'll talk about client responsibilities.
Yeah, so, we're going to go over each step of the VR process in this, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's expected out of the client in that different stage of the process. So the first stage we want to talk about is the referral and application. And so the question that needs to be answered there, I feel like, is who can receive VR services? And the answer to that is any person who is available for assessment and services in the state of Georgia and who has a physical, mental, or emotional disability that interferes with his or her ability to work. Any of those individuals may apply for vocational rehabilitation services. And so when you come in and you meet the counselor and they're doing the application, one of the things that they're going to do is, explain the VR process and mission. And then they're going to start asking questions. So be prepared to talk. For the application process, be prepared to talk. The questions may look like, how does the disability impact your ability to work? These are important things for us to know so that we can evaluate how your disability affects your ability to work. So what specialists do you see? And one of the things that will also need to happen is VR will need to get releases of information signed so that we can obtain the records that are necessary to verify your disability. And so one of the things that you can do to kind of streamline this process is when you arrive for the application and the counselor is ready to complete the application, if you already have the medical records and things with you, if you can bring a copy of those, that could help streamline that process as well. And, from the application process, we're going to move into eligibility and determining your eligibility and whether or not you're eligible for vocational rehabilitation services. And to be eligible for vocational rehabilitation services, you must have a physical, mental, or emotional disability that seriously interferes with your ability to work. So you must also have a need for and be able to benefit from vocational rehabilitation services to get ready for or go back to work or to stay on your job. If you receive supplemental security income or SSI or Social Security Disability Insurance or SSDI based on your own disability and you plan to go to work, you probably qualify for vocational rehabilitation services. Your VR counselor will use your current medical, psychological, vocational, and assessment information about your disability to determine your eligibility for services. Now, in addition to that, sometimes other assessments are needed. And so the potential client needs to be willing to attend and participate in those assessments. So additional assessment information may be needed. If it's needed, it's no cost to you. Your VR counselor will also get new information to help find out, whether or not you qualify to get services. And so it's all about determining that eligibility and the client's responsibility in this process really is just being a willing participant and being ready to talk. And so after the eligibility phase, once a client is determined eligible or not, if they are determined eligible, we'll move on and kind of go into some of the assessments. And Jason can talk a little bit about the assessments that we do.
Yes. And again, as Brandon said, it's a two-step process for eligibility termination, okay? First, they have to be qualified for eligibility for services, basic services. And then they also have to meet a high enough priority category that also would enable them to participate in those services. So, and that's based upon a formula or mixture of things from the number of services they receive, the length of those services, the functional capacities resulting from their disability that impacts them from going to work, a number of things. So if they qualify, that's a two-step process. We move on to the next step where we're doing some additional assessment. Okay, we're talking to that client and saying, okay, So, what sort of services do you think you might need in order to address your functional capacities in order to be able to go to work? So that's a conversation that counselor and client will participate in and discuss. Okay, so it's very important for potential clients to come in when they talk to their counselor, to be very forthcoming, honest, and direct about what they think they could benefit from. The counselor would kind of work with them to kind of identify some providers and some vendors out there that we could provide some additional services. But we may need to, before we kind of get into those services and about the work plan of those services, we might actually have to do some additional assessment, as I said. And that could be anything from like a work evaluation. Let's say someone comes in who's not worked in the last 20 years. Okay. They think they want to try out work, but they're just not sure. Okay. They want to kind of get reacclimated to that work environment. So work evaluation is kind of a stimulated opportunity for that client to either go out in the community or go to a site and do some experiential training, kind of job training, and around the concept of work, production and everything. It provides them an opportunity to see, hey, I like this job, I like that job, I didn't like that, okay? And that counselor also kind of gets a report about how the client did and their interests, their likes, their dislikes. So they kind of review that result of that work evaluation, and they have a better idea about where they go forward from there, okay? Another assessment that we could also see at that point is a vocational evaluation. Sometimes people come to us and say, I'm really not sure what I want to do. I think I want to work with people, but I'm really not sure kind of what specifically is out there. Sometimes people will have skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities that they never even thought about, that a vocational evaluation would kind of bring out. What does that look like? Well, they would go in and meet with an evaluator. These services are completely free of charge. Okay, we would provide that evaluation with the client's consent. We select providers and vendors that the client and the counselor both agree upon. We ask them to sign a release of information so we can give some basic information about the client to the provider to contact them and set that up. But it might be a 1 or 2 day event where they are doing some interest inventory tests, some aptitude tests, some hands-on activities to give the client and the counselor an idea of what sort of work opportunities are out there that are beneficial and that they may be possible for that client. So again, we like to have a stepwise process. So we're looking at all the knowledge, skills, and abilities. If there are any kind of things we need to address as part of related factors like childcare, transportation, we'll talk about that as well. But again, we connect it from the functional capacities from the priority category and eligibility. Okay, we provide those services to help them to address those capabilities and capacities to level the playing field. So once we've kind of completed that assessment, we then talk about developing the work plan. Okay, and that's where we get into the services. It could be anything like community work adjustment training, where they have some vocational training opportunities, sometimes paid. Okay, counseling and guidance. That's something that counselors always do. That's inherent in what we do as counselors each day. Also, job placement. That's just a basic thing that we do. We help, again, focusing on the career. It could involve other sort of assistive work technology, like that could be as simple as like an alarm clock. Okay, or something as complex as like a writing pen. All right. Some people may need those kind of accommodations and those skills to do that. So those are just a few of the services that we can provide. Work readiness training along with that. Some orientational mobility for persons who, blind or low vision, kind of help get them an idea of how to navigate throughout the process. So we list those services on the plan. The counselor and the client have to agree to both of those. That's going to be talking about the providers, the length of services, the projected outcome of those services, and the client's responsibilities. And basically here we're looking at, the client to participate in all the appointments, to follow up on job leads, to participate in their program of services, right? So that's kind of the work plan in a nutshell. We provide the client a copy of that, and then that plan is what we use to go forward to decide kind of what services will be provided and to provide those services to help that client eventually go to work. Now, in terms of the services the client receives, those can actually be provided by any number of ways. For instance, like we do work with a lot of different providers. Sometimes those are kind of like mom and pop providers. For instance, like with small providers and in terms of the community and everything. But we also know that we also work with some providers, larger providers like Bobby Dodd, so we appreciate the opportunity to present again today. So Bobby Dodd is one of our partner, one of our provider agencies as well. But those mom and pop companies may be like with Support Employment, where we assign a job coach to go out on the work site to help that person learn the job, right? So it varies in terms of the type of providers we work with the client and with the counselor. It's based on what the client needs and is interested in. And we try to pair them up with an appropriate provider to do that, right? Okay. In terms of the closures, I'll kind of refer back to Brandon on that to talk about some of the other services we provide, and then the eventual case closure.
Okay. Yeah, just some basic information to know about services. VR services will include only those services that are necessary, reasonable, and appropriate for you to reach your vocational goal and to become employed. Services through the VR division depend upon the availability of VR division funds, and VR payment for some services may require that you meet our financial needs criteria. So depending upon your financial need, you may be asked to share in the cost of some services. You may request that your counselor review any special needs or unusual circumstances for considerations, of exceptional situations too. Services will be provided to you by either the VR staff or through approved providers like Jason was mentioning, So you may be asked to make choices concerning who your providers are or who's providing the services. And so what we would like for this to be is a collaborative process from start to finish. The client is very involved, and so the client makes their own decisions. We like to create that autonomy. So you will be informed about what each service provides, and so it will be an informed decision. All services and items purchased for you must be approved in advance by a VR counselor. So if you're going to receive services, they are pre-authorized if they are approved. So you will be required, in addition to that, we have something called comparable benefits. And so you will be required to apply for comparable benefits such as like health insurance, GI Bill, Pell Grant, VA benefits, etc. And, if you're offered those comparable benefits and do not accept them, VR will not pay for that particular service. So, and if you do, then that will be worked out. VR will also consider other resources in the financial needs stage as far as like family resources and other financial awards when determining funding sources. So whenever you and your VR counselor agree that, you're ready to work, VR staff will help the client to become employed, So staff assistance varies according to individual needs and may include resume development, interview preparation, job referrals, and or employer contact information. So, finding the right job is important, and your active participation is required for that. Or the client's active participation is required in that. We want the clients to find the jobs that they want, and it's important that the client is, pleased with their employment. So after a client's employed, VR staff will follow up with the client to make sure that the client's satisfied at work. And if this is the case, we will start working towards what we call successful case closure. And so successful case closure means that the client has been on the job for 90 days and is satisfied with the job that they have. So after the client's completed the objectives for the IPE or the work plan and have been working successfully on the job for at least 90 days, the case will be ready for closure. And so at that time, VR staff will ask for certain documentations and proofs of employment. And examples of that may be pay stubs, a minimum of 2 pay stubs, or an IRS Form 941, maybe employment verification on a company letterhead, follow-up surveys, etc. There's quite a few documents that can prove that employment. And so it's important to us to know that you are employed and that you are satisfied with that employment. Jason, is there anything else that you'd like to add to the successful case closure?
No, sir. We do inform the client at each stage of the process. We keep them informed about their rights. So we send them notice that their case will be closed so that if they ever disagree with that, they can always appeal and the counselor can talk with them about that. Also, if for some reason their case is closed successfully, today everything is working out great, everything's fine. Well, 2 months from now, something happens, a life change happens, and that's part of life. We can also provide post-employment services. So they can come back to their counselor, the counselor and the client kind of talk about, okay, is there some additional training that you need, or is there maybe a piece of equipment that you might need? So that may be an option too, at certain times. But as Brandon said, that is our ultimate goal, is successful rehabilitation and case closure, because that's how we demonstrate that the services we provided led to that person becoming independent. Yeah. And if we can, Brandon, anything else to add to the services or anything?
That's good.
Right. Okay. So as far as the programs in GBRA, VR is just one of a few programs within our agency. So we'd like to talk about those just for a few minutes as well, just to kind of give you an idea. These are some other programs that maybe people may not also be aware of, that if you have someone in mind who could benefit, we'd encourage you also to talk to our brother or sister agencies as well. Disability Education Services, DAS. They review records and help determine someone's eligibility in some respects for Social Security disability. Now you might be asking, okay, well, VR is a work program. Why is DAS part of GBRA, right? Okay, well, DAS is kind of like a federal kind of state program as VR is too. So the best fit is with GBRA. We work with them. We help persons who receive Social Security benefits, SSI, SSDI, to see if they are interested to work. We have benefits navigators and counselors who will kind of advise the person how they can work without affecting their benefits for a certain amount of time as well. So if you have someone who is receiving those benefits but does want to work, please know we will be with them every step of the way and refer them for benefits counseling. Okay. The Blind Enterprise Program, BEP. This is a very interesting program. If you've ever stopped at the Welcome Center and seen some of the drink and vending machines at those centers, chances are you might have just helped someone from the Blind Enterprise Program, a client, to do some business with them by putting your quarters or swiping your credit card machine in the drink machine, because the BEP program sets people up for businesses. And a lot of times it is in a vending machine, like at the Welcome Center or other sites or visitor centers. So it's very interesting how that works. The person has to be capable, of course, of running a business. They have to keep up with documenting their cash flow and income statements, balance sheets, and all that. But BEP does a wonderful job of helping those persons to pursue employment, self-employment, businesses. Georgia Institutes for the Blind, GIB. They have a couple of sites, one down in Bainbridge, Georgia, South Georgia, one in Griffin, Georgia. So they manufacture products, pencils, bedding, pillowcases. Persons who work there are primarily blind and low vision. It's amazing some of the products they produce. Great products, great everything, great outcomes for those persons as well. Cave Springs and Roosevelt Warm Springs. Now, I'm sure some of you all may have heard about Roosevelt Warm Springs in Warm Springs, Georgia. FDR, of course, all that history and everything. Cave Springs is actually a mirror program, more on a micro level in North Georgia, actually outside of Rome, okay, off of Highway 27. So we try to kind of space that out a bit. Those are kind of on campus residential facilities persons can go to for rehabilitation services. They're referred there from the VR counselor. Brandon and I were talking about the services, all the services you could receive out in the community. You could also receive services there, sometimes driver evaluation or other type of independent living skills, daily activities of living, socialization as well. Those are some perks and benefits someone receives from participating in Cave Springs and Warm Springs. Okay. Typically, the time spent there in the past has been anywhere from 6 to 8 months. They also have some prescriptive training for a shorter period of time. If someone's looking to become certified, let's say in electronics, low voltage electronics, wiring, something like that. So it's very cool, all the technology and the services they provide as well. Then, of course, there's VR. That's us. Okay. So that's a little bit of a nutshell about each of those programs. As part of the services we provide and our focus, we assist persons from 16 years of age to retirement age. Okay. At any time, a person can have a disability, develop a disability, right? Through acquired disabilities, disabilities from birth, et cetera. So one of our big focuses right now is on transition services, assisting those persons in high school to transition from high school to work. And Brandon's going to talk a little bit about our focus on pre-employment transition for our 9th, 10th, 11th graders.
Yeah, so a little bit about what the pre-employment transition services look like. One of the things offered is job exploration counseling. And examples of that would be exploring the world of work. We also have virtual job shadowing available, high school high-tech industry tours, There's job sampling, job shadowing, vocational evaluation, and job discovery, and vocational profiles can come out of that as well. There's also work-based learning experiences. They include in school, after school, or outside the traditional school setting and in an integrated setting in the community. There's also counseling on opportunities for enrollment in comprehensive transition or post-secondary educational programs. We offer workplace readiness training. And a little bit about what that looks like. It helps a person develop skills necessary for independent living and successful employment. It also helps with job readiness, like job seeking skills and employer expectations, knowledge about employer expectations. It also workplace readiness training also helps a person with personal and social adjustments. And for the students who are blind or have low vision, we also offer, technology access training when needed for clients. Another area that is covered under the pre-employment transition is also instruction and self-advocacy. So instruction and self-advocacy provides instruction that promotes understanding of rights and responsibilities, educates students on how to request accommodations or services and supports. Also assists with developing leadership, teamwork, assertiveness, communication, and decision-making skills. And once again, this portion of services can also assist with those personal and social adjustments that are needed for transition too.
And like Brandon was saying, the other focus as part of transition is for those seniors, okay, for what we call general transition services, all right? So the same services Brandon mentioned for our 9th, 10th, 11th graders, the focus is helping them pre-employment training, pre-employment assessment services to help give them some exposure and give them an idea of what they want to do, okay, exposure to work concepts, as he said, by the time they get in the 12th grade, our focus is really on helping them successfully transition from 12th grade to graduation, okay? And then planning long-term what services we will provide once they graduate, okay? Our services don't stop once a person graduates. And we talked with our school partners about that to say, look, maybe we just only gave them a taste, a limited experience about, training. Well, now that they graduated, maybe they're interested in going to Roosevelt Warm Springs and obtaining some additional certifications or measurable skill gains for 6 to 8 months, so that may be possible. But again, that counselor will kind of meet with them early on in their senior year, attend their what we call an IEP meeting, planning meeting, transition meetings throughout the year to help make sure the student is on track to graduate. Counseling and guidance, of course, in terms of some vocational evaluation we talked about earlier to see what kind of interest they may have after graduation in terms of pursuing work. Post-secondary, Georgia Excel program, that's a great program too for inclusive post-secondary. So all those options are available. We just want to work with our school system and partners in the community, our providers in the community, to make sure, from the 9th grade to the 12th grade, we really give that client, that student, exposure to the world of work so they're prepared by the time they graduate to know what they're going to do and then work with their counselor to get there.
Thank you so much, Jason and Brandon. Do have a couple of questions. Hopefully the audience got an idea of how important VR is in the employment ecosystem and through the services that you provide and the referrals that you do to other organizations. But like I said, a couple of questions. One was early on, you had mentioned that you get referrals and people are referred to you. Where do those referrals come from? Like what entities are referring individuals for your services?
Brandon, would you be okay for me to address this from my experience? And it's varied, and Brandon knows as well. But again, they can come from our school system, our school partners, or high schools. They can come from DFACS, DOL, the technical and adult education, our community agencies, our vendors and providers like Bobby Dodd. They can be self-referrals. Again, we want to change the idea that VR is the best kept secret in Georgia. We appreciate your willingness to kind of go out there and spread the word about these opportunities for people. So sometimes people hear about services They say, oh yeah, BR. So they can actually refer themselves and call in and do a self-referral in that way. But it just varies. We do try to keep track of our referral sources because we always want to make sure we're communicating back to them and thanking them for the referrals as well. Brandon, anything to add as far as where we receive our referrals?
No, it's just important, referrals are such an important part of this that, that's one thing we always want to increase. So that's why we're so happy to have opportunities like this to speak about what we do. And so absolutely, if there's a way to receive a referral, I feel like we're open to it.
Yes, indeed.
Great, thank you. Another question that I wanted to share is it really pertains to the individualized process, and understand that people are going to have different needs, and everyone has a different path. But could you give the audience an idea of just the timeline for services, and maybe equate it back to some cases, so to speak, without naming names, but give it the audience a sense of, okay, if somebody just needs, a service, it might be, a day. However, if it's an A, B, and C, we could be talking more a couple of months. And where would the differences lie, and what could make that difference between somebody being involved in VR services for a short amount of time versus a longer time span?
Well, and Brandon, if you don't mind, I'll provide some ideas, and if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, it does vary from person to person. So it's hard to give a concrete to say, look, this is the experience everyone will receive. This is the time frame they would go to. I will say in general terms, again, keep in mind, VR is a process. Okay. It's at least going to be, we think, 3 months to 6 months, because we're going to provide some services, and then we have to track that person once they become employed for at least 3 additional months. Okay. So we're not looking for like an overnight type of thing. Everyone will probably at least go through at least, I would say, Brandon, would you agree? 5 to 6 months. Absolutely. It could be longer though. Again, we talked about Roosevelt Warm Springs. Someone may need to stay there longer than 6 months, and that's okay, because again, it is individualized, and that's the great thing about what we do. Sometimes in terms of participating, like in evaluations, that could just be 1 or 2 days, so that is fairly quick. When they meet with their counselor to develop the work plan, that's within like an hour or 2. But again, those services, that timeline for those services, it's just really hard to kind of to pin down and say, look, this is exactly what will happen every time, because we provide those services, we plan those services based upon what each client needs at their level, where they are, and then kind of where the client and the counselor are trying to get to from here to there to do that. Brandon, any thoughts about that?
No, I agree with everything. Yeah.
But we hope that helps. Yeah. Again, please know we're trying to help help everyone understand. But that client and that counselor, the relationship they form is so critical, so essential, because it will just vary based upon a number of different items that may need to be considered in that person's case.
Great. Thanks, Jason. One last question, unless any come in as you both are answering it. You mentioned the job exploration, and that there are a number of different opportunities for individuals to explore what's available. I'm wondering what the commitment is on time in terms of those job explorations. Are they typically 1 day, or do some run, a week or multiple weeks, depending on, the scope of the opportunity?
Brandon, would you like to share some of course, not naming any names, but just in terms of how our process works as a counselor refers our customers to our employment specialists, our providers, and kind of what they may look like in terms of going out there and preparing, resumes and completing job applications and the job search process?
Well, it's important really when you're talking about job shadowing and things like that. That's one reason why we offer the pre-employment transition services in the schools, because it gives that early foundation for that. And so, when we're talking about the school age clients, our students, there's opportunities such as the virtual job shadowing, it's become available this year and things like that, to where they can actually, do that online. And there's, job shadowing in communities and things like that as well. Jason, what specific would you like to mention?
Yeah, and so as they graduate, from high school, so the counselor would refer the person to an employment specialist, usually, if they're using a provider like a support employment job coach to help them in terms of learning the job. And so what that employment specialist will do, what that provider will do, with the client's permission, of course, we have release information, all that. We don't go out and talk to people without the client's consent. Okay, is advocate for them. Okay, sometimes the client may say, I feel pretty comfortable in kind of going out there and getting my own job. Yes, thank you, VR, for the services. I'm still going to follow up with you to manage my case and everything. But I'm okay, I think, in going out there and finding my own, own job, so to speak. We may just kind of track them in that respect. Other people kind of need someone to kind of go out there and advocate for them, kind of knock on the door, if you will, and create those opportunities. Sometimes we have to create a job, we call that job carving, where we kind of slice off some duties of a job and kind of formulate that job around the client, about that person, again, what their strengths, what their abilities and interests are, to make sure there's a good match. But it all comes back to making sure that client feels comfortable, that employer feels comfortable, and ultimately we lead again to that employment independence long term, and have it be a career for that person, not just a job.
Excellent. Thank you again, Brandon and Jason. We're so excited and appreciate your time with us. And I wanted to, as I toggle back here, I wanted to just promote our next session, which will be on Wednesday, June 2nd. And just like Jason and Brandon provided the high-level overview of VR, we're going to have a high-level overview of rights under the American Disabilities Act, and we'll dive into the Olmstead Act as well. And so we hope that those of you on the call will be able to join us for that. We have two wonderful presenters for this very important session. And please mark your calendars, if you haven't already, for October 19th at the City of Refuge for our live symposium, which will be a deeper dive into some very specific topics surrounding employment and advocacy. So it should be a very worthwhile day, and we are looking forward to it. It'd be really nice to be, I guess, face-to-face, but probably mask-to-mask in terms of getting together and being able to share what's going on in our community and the opportunities that are available. And of course, you can always connect with us via the different social media channels. And once again, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.